People who clean up after festivals and similar events. What's the best and worst things you have found left behind? I found a cooler and 135 in the lot after a fish show. I've cleaned up and found entire cooking sets and chairs. Not a cleaning person, but I saw a prosthetic leg left at the end of a metal festival. Full cases of beer that people cannot be bothered to carry, weed that people forget, entire tents in good condition. My dad used to be the guy in charge of renting out the Knights of Columbus Hall. Per policy, he had to be on site during the event, but would clean up after. The cleanup would usually be the next day, and I'd come along to help. The best thing we found was a 500 tip left behind by the father of the bride after a wedding reception with a little thank you note. The worst was finding the punch bowl the next day after someone had puked in it and put a lid over it. I am pretty sure it had been spiked with something pretty strong before that, too. I was working at a festival, although not doing cleanup, and stayed till the day after. The amount of tents people leave behind, brand new tents. Basically, people just buy new stuff for that festival and then cannot be bothered to bring it home, dispose of it properly. I ended up with a brand new 10-person tent. Thanks to some other people's laziness, I helped out some hippie friends of mine running this little hippie festival called Chronophonium. About 500 people camping for 3 days. Lots of themes around sustainability, recycling and whatnot. Almost everyone left brand new tents in disheveled states all over the place. You can buy a cheap tent for next to nothing at the warehouse New Zealand's Walmart. I reckon people are packing up to go on the last day hungover as duck and they just wanna mentally write off everything and get home ASAP. These same people would have launched into monologues about wastefulness from big box stores and sustainable reuse at any other time. When you re-hungover and coming down from a 3-day bender, principles go out the window. Even worse, people who triumphantly declare something like, you know what? I'm just going to leave the tent here as a donation. Why not let someone else have it? Right. Then feel all altruistic about themselves as they leave their garbage behind. Lived near a beach that had festivals during the summer. Some locals would volunteer to clean up the place, but they would look for leftovers and things left by people, or at worst steal what they could. But the biggest haul was from a group of tourists who were too lazy and drink to clean up after themselves, so they left their tent. When they went home, it had chairs, a couch, a grill, and 3 coolers filled with alcohol and meat. The person who got it shared the food and drinks with his neighbor and sold the tent for a good penny. My favorite story is someone finding a giant teddy bear with strap-ons on it found inside a porta potty. Bottle of rum, lots and lots of drugs, watches, phones, perfectly good clothes, welly boots, wallets, cash etc. Worst is shit tents, as in abandoning your tent but doing a massive shit in it before you go so it can be reused. Worst is definitely a tie between the 5-liter water carrier filled with urine or the lidded saucepan containing a single, fairly large, poo. I did a clean at a 3-day music festival once. Literally the first night I had to clean one of the portable shower cubicles because someone had shit in the corner and stuck a cocktail umbrella in it. Did it once as a fundraiser for a youth organization, and collectively we found 3010 mobile phones, and this was during the days when it was a somewhat luxury to have a phone. Clarification: edit, I didn't personally find and keep all of the above. This is what was found by the group of us, which was around 40 teenagers. I found 35 and no phones. I cleaned up for an event once, and it was an event where you weren't allowed to bring your own alcohol in, so they can get you to buy it from the event itself, and whatnot, so cops were taking people's alcohol. Cool. That's fine. I was cleaning up, and 2 cops walked over and asked if I was 18. I showed them my license to prove I was, and they gave me almost 1,000 of unto-shade alcohol that they confiscated from people trying to sneak it in. Bottles of vodka and tequila, a lot of beer and rum, and a bunch of ideas all given to me cause I was a volunteer and not getting paid otherwise. Was ducking great. I worked for a summer driving the buses and cleaning them for a summer fest. Never found much left on the buses except a lot of vomit. Except this one time we were walking through the lot tallying how my buses had a certain type of radio for the company, and I'd found the money pouch left on the bus by one of the girls whose job it was to collect payments from those riding the buses to the fairgrounds. In those days I was a poor college student and I choked when I saw there was around 2,000 in there. But I was also a good girl and turned it in. Apparently they had been set to fire her and sue her for the stolen cash. So I saved her from a criminal record. But of course she still lost her job for being careless. I never did get even a thank you from the company. I'm an usher at my neighborhood movie theater, so IDK if this counts, but I found a plastic bag under a seat with 6 guppies swimming around inside, so I kept the guppies for myself lol. I had to Google how to take care of fish, but it was fun, and I still have them today. After fish shows there's a group of volunteers that clean up the lot. It's called Green Crew. The first time I did it, I wasn't fully aware what the point was. We got gloves and a trash bag then spread out on one side of the lot and walked across it picking shit up. When we got to the other side, everyone was way faster than me getting to the other side. We were told to consolidate bags. I go to pour mine into the guy next to me. He goes, "Ooh, dude, we only pick up returnable and recyclable stuff." As I poured trash and glow sticks and like food and shit into his bag of recyclables. A heavily used dildo stuck tip up on a tent stake. I was told to cut everything off of the tree of happiness, where everyone was told to write something down that made them happy and tie it to the tree. It was in a public park, so they all had to be removed, and I put them into a jar because I didn't think I should just throw them away. So now I still have what I call the jar of happiness. Still do not know what to do with it. We'd always find pipes, condoms in various states gross. Once I found a gift card mixed in with the detritus next to the stage. Checked the 1-800 number and it still had 100 value. But I do not know if it is the best or worst thing. But one time after the last concert, after the bands left and the sound and light contractor had packed out and left, we found a girl under the stage, seriously hungover and looking like heck but still alive. Apparently, she crawled up under there at some point and passed out. Slept for 6 hours. One of the house crew loaned her a cell phone and she called someone to come pick her up. Off she went to rock another day. Poop tent. It's a 5-gallon bucket filled with laundry detergent with a toilet seat on top, placed in a cheap tent. Imagine open that sucker up after 4 days of 100-degree weather. Dead body. It was an apparent odd. Booze and drugs. Also a night rest tank. That night after work was fun. We were too wasted to leave music festival outside of LA once, so we just hung out and waited for everyone else to take off. When my BF and I finally got straight enough to pack up, we walked through a wasteland of expensive brand name tents and chairs. We put our stuff away and then literally just walked around picking stuff up. The people cleaning had already picked through all the good stuff and were literally filling wheelbarrows full of things. We ended up scoring a Moosage or 8-person tent that was barely used. I found a few pair of designer glasses and a crap ton of other clothes like hoodies and very nice jeans. My BF found a really expensive folding knife and a brand new Canon 5D that had one picture of someone's butt on it. He found a coin purse that had 300 in it and no ID under a styrofoam cooler. We also found a Yeti cooler that was filled with crushed hard seltzer cans and a poo that we cleaned out. We packed this stuff literally to the brim with expensive stuff and have been using it all for years. Not a rave, but when I lived at a party house in my early 20s, I once cleaned up after a big night and found a cigarette with lipstick on the end you typically light. The lipstick wearer had smoked it backwards and inhaled nearly the entire filter. Not my profession, but I lived in the downtown area of my city when I was younger, and every year for the last 100 odd years they've had a huge festival in that downtown area celebrating the fruit crop. Although nowadays it's less about the crop and more about the kids from the local university getting wasted. Anyways, I stepped out my back door on the last night of the festival and saw a young woman passed out in the alley. I ran over to her as quick as I could to make sure she was alive. I had 911 on the phone and they advised me to poke her with my foot just in case she was alive and responded aggressively. So I poke this chick with my foot and almost die of a heart attack myself when she leaps up, screams like a ducking banshee and throws an empty bottle of Fireball square into my chest. She took off running, stumbling down the alley and stopped about 50 feet away from me, takes off her dress and completely naked starts pissing in the road. Then she took off down the street. The 911 operator just says, "Did she respond to the nudge with your foot?" I was a volunteer at a large festival, though I didn't work cleaning the camping area, but I did speak to one of the scavengers who roamed the camping area afterwards. He said the best loot was car batteries and Euro pallets. Turns out there are hardware and construction companies who will pay you a deposit for those things. He also found tons of beer. Yeah, IDK what a Euro pallet is. But car batteries have a scrap value. It's like 60 cents a pound or something, and even a small car battery weighs around 20 pounds. I was jumping for joy when my elderly neighbor paid me $200 to clean out his garage and said I could keep anything I wanted. This crazy mofo had 20 car batteries stacked up in the corner behind all the junk, as well as like 50 pounds of brass and copper pipe fittings. Brass and copper have a scrap value of 2 pounds or more. I made like 600 for one day's work. FYI, the Euro pallet Eurapal pallet is the European standard pallet used for transporting goods. ETC. It means all pallets in Europe are compatible with almost all forklifts, storage compartments, shelves, floor spaces, vehicles, etc. and can be traded like for like with other pallets without having to worry about unpacking and returning the exact same pallets or sizes, etc. even across borders. Because so much is shipped on Euro pallets, they are in constant use and in constant demand. Not quite what was asked, but I have an uncle who runs a 2-day festival. It is held on tribal land. At the end, people from the tribe were ready to clean up after the weekend festivities. That was part of the contract. After last act, he gets up on stage and asks the festival goers to help clean up after themselves. The crowd left it clean. No cleanup needed after. So guess clean grounds after a weekend festival may count. I feel like it might have been partly because they were on tribal land, so they felt obligated to help them instead of causing further harm to their land. Probably also because they were directly called to help at the end instead of the beginning, which I don't even get. Why you re-asking at the beginning? Most people probably want to remember you said it by the end. Oh, by far the worst was a group of friends, easily 10-15 of them by the evidence, who had a tent that they used as a bathroom, so they didn't have to go to the portaloos. Fully just sat in the corner and worked their way out over the days. It was horrendous. I don't understand how anyone could have gone in there with the smell. Plus it was a 3-day festival and we got to the tent on day 2 or 3 of post-festival cleanup. So it'd been marinating for up to 6 days. In the dead heat of the Australian summer, I lost a lot of hope for humanity through that job. Used to work in a nightclub and we had an event for a large group of related companies. It was their Christmas party or something. 4 AM rolls around and everyone leaves slowly, as usual grumpy about having to leave. And once everyone's gone, we find a pair of men's dress shoes and a pink lacy G-string on the dancer floor. Not a worker or cleaner, but the morning we woke up to leave Bonnaroo, one member of our group found an 800G chunk of opium on the ground outside his tent. It was amazing. Super high quality and we couldn't really believe it. He gave each of us a hunk and kept the rest. Unsurprisingly, it actually was the catalyst for him to slide into opiate addiction and changed his life forever. I often wonder how life would have turned out for him if he had just looked the other way. I worked as a sound engineer for an under 21 club in Alaska for a couple years. You'd find all sorts of stuff left behind after shows. For some reason, nearly every other show, some scene kid would decide to plug their phone into charge somewhere and forget about it. We'd also find all sorts of drugs, mostly weed or pills like Adderall or Vicodin, but also oftentimes half-empty bottles of shitty booze, very often pints of Monarch vodka or RR whiskey, whippet canisters. 4 lockers. This was during the original formula years, and empty bottles of Robitussin Maximum Cough back in the days when it was all DXM. I think the best thing we ever found, though, was a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, a 2500 amp that was probably going for 1700 new at the time. me, the promoter, and my guitarist called literally every guitarist that had played there that week to try to get it back to them. None of them claimed it. So my guitarist got a new amp out of the deal. Club near my office had a fire on their party deck. I guess with insurance they decided to remodel entirely. I dumpster dove and came out with 3V. Large 300 watt stage speakers, a guitar amp with a broken carry handle and 3 preamps. I took as much as I could fit in my little car and sold it all on CL for about $600 by the following weekend. I used to walk around the raves and look on the ground with a flashlight. Found a multitude of great things. In one night I would find a bag of ecstasy pills, cocaine assorted drugs, 30 lighters, hundreds of dollars in cash, jewelry and so many articles of clothing. That was the average each weekend. I'm an event manager for corporate conferences and trade shows. Best thing I've seen left behind was from a large well-known medical company. They left an unopened brand new defibrillator that you'd see in an emergency room. When I called and told them they had left it behind, they said to keep it. So naturally I googled the item. Retail cost $5k. Worst item, nothing too crazy fortunately. Probably some used hair weaves or cheap dildos adult industry shows. Money. Lots of alcohol, drugs, phones, clothes. Depending on the festival you can come across a lot of designer clothes. Those are the most common things you lines find. Camping gear is an obvious one, but you see some good quality brand stuff that is all new. Chairs, air mattresses etc. More unusual or expensive things found are foldable Ray-Bans. MAC makeup brushes which can be $60 per brush apparently. Crazy bike. Gold necklaces and other small things like that. The worst thing left behind is excrement. You come across toilet tents. Yup, that is exactly what you think it is. People are disgusting. Do not do this. If you do this you are the worst kind of person. I would just like to add, as people have been saying they leave their tents behind. This is littering. Unless you take it down and pack it up and leave it somewhere for a charity collection, then you are littering. For everyone tent that gets taken down and reused there is hundreds that just get bulldozed and go to landfill. The charities only get a short amount of time to take down and pack up tents before they get hunted off by security and the whole lot gets bulldozed. Do not bring more than you need to a festival, and then you would not have too much to carry back on the last day. Take your rubbish home. Use the bins. Take your stuff home. Take your stuff home, or that stuff just becomes rubbish. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.